Hey y'all, welcome back to A Dinosaur in the Library. I'm Dawn, and this is Vlogmas Day 19. So today I'm going to do a video about my reading challenge for 2015, even though I know there's still a few days to go. I'm going to go ahead and do this and talk a little bit about my reading challenge for 2016. So first of all, I did a Goodreads challenge of 100 books, which I wasn't sure I was going to be able to meet. I normally exceed that, but with school and everything, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to meet that. But a combination of graphic novels and children's books did push me over the top. I think the total the other day was 125, but as I said, a lot of those, well, not a lot, but 15 or 20 are probably picture books. So there's that. But I did read, which my Goodreads challenges aren't something that I take insanely serious. It's just something I would like to hit, but I wouldn't, if I hadn't hit 100, I wouldn't have, been incredibly depressed and been upset about it. I would just been like, oh, no. I'm just depressed that I don't get to read as much as I usually do. So the other challenge that I did this year is the Book Read Harder challenge. And I'll link the original video where I was talking about this, where I was talking about doing this in the box below. And I printed out earlier this year the bingo card edition of this challenge. And as you can see, I did all but 3 of the challenges. And while I realized that it's still, 12 days? There are still 12 days left in 2015. I'm being 100% honest with myself that no, I'm not going to read an audiobook before then. I'm not going to read a book published before 1850 by then. And I'm unfortunately not going to read a book by or about an indigenous culture by then. I really did plan on reading everything on here, but as the year went on, I realized there was no way I was going to read an audiobook. It's not that I have anything against them or, judge people who listen to them. I just don't particularly like them myself. I've only ever listened to one in my entire life, and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't something that I would use as a replacement for a book, just because personally, I don't concentrate very well when I'm listening to a book. I don't know why. Just one of those things. So I did not read an audiobook. I really did want to read a book by or about an indigenous culture, but I did not get around to it. I will probably just kind of tack it on to next year's intentions, but yes. And then a book published before 1850, I had intended on reading Ovid's Metamorphosis, which the physical book itself was not published before 1850, but the text was, and this edition just happened not to be, which was sort of cheating anyway, but I did not get around to reading that, and I'm just being honest and saying that there's no way I'm going to get around to reading it in the next 12 days. So, but I did do a pretty decent job, I think, all but 3 of these. I'll go through them. So, the retelling, I counted Cinder by Marissa Meyer. Guilty Pleasure, I said which was a really hard one for me because I don't really have guilty pleasures when it comes to books. What I read is what I read, but I went ahead and said rereads are my guilty pleasure, and the only reason I say that they're a guilty pleasure is that I feel like there's so many other books that I need to be reading, and here I am reading another book over again. But so I counted To Kill a Mockingbird and The Long Earth, first 2 in the Long Earth series, as rereads and guilty pleasures. I did not read the audiobook. Romance novel, the closest I got was Soulless by Gail Carriger. Probably the closest I'm ever going to get. I counted Photo Booth, a biography for the graphic novel. Queer Fear, edited by Michael Rowe for the LGBTQ. Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which I loved, for my author from Africa. October Morning by Leslie Newman as my poetry. Living with a Wild God by Barbara Ehrenreich, author over 65. I struggled trying to find that one until I realized that Barbara Ehrenreich was older than 65. Translated book, Blue is the Warmest Color by Julie Moreau. Recommended book, How to Be a Woman by Caitlin Moran. That was recommended to me by multiple booktube channels. Author of The Opposite Gender, I counted The Yellow Lighted Bookshop by Louis Busby. My free space was Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. Self-improvement book, I counted Revolution by Russell Brand because I feel that you would definitely improve as a human being by reading that book. I did not read a book published before 1850. My indie press book was Meaty by Samantha Irby, and I did a full review of that, so I will leave it below if you are interested. Book published in 2015, The Great Detective by Zachary Dunedis, and I also did a full review of that. I will leave below. Sci-fi novel, The Man Who Loved Morlocks by David J. Lake. A sequel many years later, obviously not an approved sequel, to The Time Machine. Loved it. Award winner, Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, which won the National Book Award, right? Yes. So yeah. Did not read a book by or about an indigenous culture. My microhistory was On the Map by Simon Garfield, and I really need to do a microhistory video. Maybe I'll do that for one of the remaining days of Vlogmas. 22, short story collection. I read The Complete Stories by Flannery O'Connor. A book set in Asia. 23 was Elmer by Jerry Alonguilan. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. It's a Filipino last name, and I am terribly sorry if it is mispronounced. A YA novel, The Scorched Trials by James Dashner, and author under 25, More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera, which was one of my best reads this year. So yeah, that was my Read Harder challenge for 2015. And they have already brought 2016's Read Harder challenge out. So nobody has made a bingo card for it yet, but maybe I will. But this is the list of challenges, and I'll quickly go over those. Read a horror book. That's going to be easy. Read a nonfiction book about science. Again, easy. A collection of essays. Read a book out loud to someone else. I got plenty of picture books. We'll do this. Read a middle grade novel, a biography, not memoir, autobiography, dystopian or post-apocalyptic, a book published in the decade you were born, listen to an audiobook that has won an audio award. That again will probably be my Achilles heel. Read a book over 500 pages long. Read a book under 100 pages. Read a book by or about a person that identifies as transgender. Read a book that is set in the Middle East. Read a book by an author from Southeast Asia. Read a book of historical fiction set before 1900. Read the first book in a series by a person of color. Read a non-superhero comic that debuted in the last 3 years. Read a book that was adapted into a movie, then watch the movie. Debate which is better. Read a nonfiction book about feminism or dealing with feminist themes. Read a book about religion, fiction or nonfiction. Read a book about politics in your country or another, fiction or nonfiction. Read a food memoir, read a play, and read a book with a main character that has a mental illness. Other than the audiobook and maybe the play, because I really enjoy plays, but I don't like reading them as much as I like seeing them. Those two will probably be the ones that give me the most difficulty for next year. The rest of these sounds like they just went through my Goodreads list and wrote this based on me. I'm already in my head listing out books that I want to read first thing for this because, yeah. Oh, and the one published in the decade in which I was born. So something published in the 1970s. Shouldn't be too much of an issue. It's not like it's going to be hard to find. It's just going to be difficult for me to pick which one and to locate one that I really want to read, because I don't want to read something just because it ticks one of these boxes. I want to read it because I want to read it and it's on my TBR, or it's something that I would have added to my TBR regardless. I don't want to just be like, oh, I need this for my Goodreads or for my Book Riot challenge. That's not helpful. And I think with any book challenge, that's the important thing to remember is challenging yourself to do these things is fun, and it's supposed to be fun. And yeah, if you want to challenge yourself against your friends to kind of have like a, you know, your own sort of book challenge within that, that's completely fine. And obviously that's something you could do if you wanted to. But the point is, reading is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be something that you do because you love to do it, or you do it because you really want to learn what the book is trying to tell you, or you're trying to learn something in general, or it's not meant to be a chore. And I think sometimes people look at both their Goodreads challenge or challenges like this, or even readathon challenges on BookTube as something that's sort of a chore in a way, because they feel like they have to get through it. They have to do it. They have to finish the challenge. And I think that takes all the fun out of it. So while I mention these throughout the year, and I will probably be updating you and saying, oh, you know, I missed my goal or whatever, I'm still having fun with it. It's still something that I'm doing because I like, it's like people who love to run taking part in competitive races. They still love to run, and they're doing competition for fun. And that's the same thing with me. Although running may not be the same thing. And if you ever see me running, you better look for what's chasing me, because that's the only time that's happening. But yeah, that's just my little PSA about book challenges. Make sure you're doing it for fun. Make sure you're not doing it. Make sure it's not making your reading a chore. And that's the important thing. And I hope everybody is enjoying Vlogmas as much as I am. This has been a hell of a lot of fun. I'm really, really glad that I've been doing this, even though I've been like, oh my God, what am I going to put up tomorrow? It's kind of a challenge in itself, figuring out, oh, what kind of content can I put up the rest of Vlogmas? And it's a really good time to put up those videos that you've been meaning to do and you just haven't gotten around to them. So microhistories is definitely one that I've been meaning to do and have not gotten around to. So that may be one that I get to, and it may not be. If I don't get to it during Vlogmas, hopefully I will get to it at the beginning of the year. So again, I hope everybody's having a great week, and I will stop talking now because I keep rambling longer and longer in these videos. And I hope everybody's challenges have gone well for them this year, and that you are planning your reading goals for next year if that is something that you enjoy doing. And I will see you tomorrow for Vlogmas Day 20.